Right now, somewhere in your house, a thermostat is quietly winning a war you don't even know is happening. You never feel the cold building outside because something intervenes before it ever reaches you. That's not normal. That's not how it worked for 99% of human existence. For nearly the entire span of our species, winter wasn't weather. It was an opponent, and a patient one. It didn't need to win fast. It just needed you to make one mistake. And it didn't come at you with one weapon. It came with four, all at once, all trying to finish the job before spring arrived. Cold that could stop your heart in a matter of hours. Hunger that hollowed people out slowly, over months, until there was nothing left to burn. Predators sharpened by their own desperation, more dangerous in winter than any other season. And darkness, long enough and empty enough to break a person's mind before it ever touched their body. 4 different ways to die, running at the same time, and somehow our ancestors beat all 4 over and over for hundreds of thousands of years. Not with steel, not with electricity, with bone, hide, fire, and something far more dangerous to underestimate, intelligence under pressure. Here's exactly how they did it. Start with the cold because it's the fastest killer, and honestly, the one you're least equipped to survive on paper. Strip away the myth of the tough, fur-covered caveman. Biologically, we were never built for this. Human skin is thin, body hair is nearly decorative. We evolved in East Africa as heat-dumping machines built to chase prey down under a blazing sun, not to withstand a Siberian night 40 degrees below freezing. Drop a naked human into that world and hypothermia isn't a risk. It's a guarantee and a fast one. Your body starts shutting down non-essential systems within hours. Your hands go first, then your thinking, then everything. So the first real breakthrough wasn't fire. Fire is a trap disguised as a solution. The second you step away from it to hunt or gather fuel, the cold comes straight back for you. Fire alone was never going to be enough. The actual answer was learning to trap a personal climate around your body and carry it everywhere. And this took real engineering. Sites across Siberia and Central Europe have produced eyed needles fine enough to thread with sinew, scrapers shaped specifically to strip fat and connective tissue without weakening the hide, and evidence of layered garment construction, an inner layer to pull moisture off the skin, an outer layer to block wind entirely. This wasn't guesswork passed down by luck. This was a manufacturing process, refined generation after generation, tens of thousands of years before technical outerwear became a marketing term. Fire alone was never going to be enough, but solving the body only buys you time because a perfectly dressed human left exposed all night still dies. You need somewhere to disappear into when the sun goes down, and this is where it gets genuinely difficult, because caves, the obvious answer, were a lottery. Rare, contested, sometimes already occupied by something with teeth. Most groups had to build their own protection from scratch, using whatever the land actually offered. In treeless stretches where timber simply didn't exist, that meant construction from the largest available biomass on the landscape, skeletal remains of enormous animals engineered into wind-resistant domes. Packed with turf and snow for insulation, snow, ironically, became an ally rather than an enemy. Once people understood it as dead air trapped in crystal structure, a natural barrier against wind chill, nearly as effective as animal hide. But a shelter creates its own trap. To keep it heated, you need continuous fuel, which means someone has to keep stepping back out into the exact cold you're trying to escape. That constant tether to a fixed location is what turns the next threat lethal: hunger. Winter doesn't just make food harder to find, it makes it vanish almost entirely for months at a stretch. Plants shut down, migratory herds disappear over the horizon. What's left behind is lean, desperate, and hard to catch. This turned food into a forward planning problem instead of a daily one. Autumn became a single frantic operation to bank enough calories to survive a season that offered almost nothing fresh in return. Get the math wrong in October, and you find out in February when it's far too late to fix it. The preservation systems they built were remarkably advanced. Thin strips of meat, hung in cold, dry air, lost enough moisture to resist decay for months. Smoke layered on a second protective barrier, both chemical and practical, understood empirically long before anyone had a word for bacteria. Frozen ground itself became a freezer that cost nothing to run. And fat, more than meat, was the real treasure. More than double the caloric density of protein, exactly what a body burns through fastest just trying to stay warm. Rendered down and mixed with pulverized dried meat, it created an early, brutally efficient survival ration dense enough to carry a person through weeks on almost nothing else. Solve the cold, solve the shelter, solve the hunger. You'd think that's the whole fight. But there's a fourth threat left, and it's the one almost nobody thinks about because it doesn't touch the body at all. It goes straight for the mind. In northern winters, daylight can shrink down to just a handful of usable hours. What follows is well over half a day of total darkness, confined in a small space, with the same handful of people, night after night, for months without a break. No modern comparison really captures what that does to a person. Imagine every day narrowed down to a thin strip of gray light, followed by darkness so complete you can't safely step outside it. Confinement at that scale is a documented psychological stressor even now with all our distractions. For a group with nowhere to go and nothing to escape into, it had the power to fracture a community from the inside. Resentment, despair, the kind of slow unraveling that could kill a group just as effectively as frostbite ever could. And yet, this is exactly where something extraordinary happened. The groups that made it through didn't just endure the darkness, they turned it into something useful. The long night became dedicated time for skill transfer, repairing tools, mending garments, twisting fiber into cordage, all work that needed no daylight and no good weather. And more importantly, it became the space where knowledge got passed down by voice. An elder describing the exact valley where game had gathered during a brutal winter 15 years earlier. Stories built specifically to be memorable, repeated until every person in the group carried a working copy in their head. This wasn't entertainment to pass the time. It was a backup system for information that, if it disappeared, could kill the next generation that needed it. Step back far enough, and a pattern jumps out. Every single one of these four threats forced a leap forward. The cold produced fitted engineered clothing. The absence of shelter produced real architecture. The seasonal collapse of food produced a preservation science advanced enough that pieces of it are still used today. And the crushing weight of endless dark nights produced something even bigger. The beginning of transmitted culture itself, the mechanism that lets knowledge outlive the person who first discovered it. None of this was guaranteed, and that's worth sitting with for a second. For every group that solved these four problems, the archaeological record also holds evidence of groups that didn't. Shelters abandoned midwinter, communities that simply vanish from the record after one particularly brutal season. Surviving winter was never passive. It was an achievement, re-earned every single year, built on inherited knowledge, brutal preparation, and people who refused to let each other die. And that's really the part worth remembering. Somewhere between 40,000 and 15,000 years ago, people whose names will never be known solved problems precise enough to keep their descendants alive through conditions that would kill most of us in a matter of hours. No thermostat, no grocery store, just bone needles, frozen ground, and each other. And somehow it was enough. Every winter you've ever complained about, they would have called easy. And every convenience you take for granted right now exists because somewhere in the deep cold of the Ice Age, someone figured out how not to die and made absolutely sure the next person knew how to.